Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, my guest is Tim Newman, and let me tell you about Tim. Dr. Tim Newman is an accomplished educator and sport professional with nearly 3 decades of experience in the field of sport management and athletic training, specializing in areas of sports marketing, public relations, leadership, and social media. He has taught in the United States and across the globe, including Botswana, Malaysia, and Thailand. He has always been a forward thinker and problem solver, which led him to write Social Media in Sport Marketing, which was published with over 10 years ago as one of the first books on the subject. Those qualities were also impetus for him teaching and developing online courses for over 20 years and laid the foundation for his newest project, the Speaking with Confidence course. He is also the founder of Dream Chasers Management Group and strives to help others achieve their goals by implementing proven marketing techniques, strategic planning, and effective communication skills. Today, we are going to talk about something that you all know I love to talk about. I teach it as well as promote it anywhere I can, and that's being a good communicator takes work and practice. Please join me in welcoming my guest, Tim Newman. Tim, we are 2 birds in the same nest here. We love to help people be better communicators, and it's how we get through life, right?
Yeah, we do. It's nonstop, and if people would understand just how important communication is, not a lot of times we talk about it just from a business and professional perspective. How much better would life be if we were better interpersonal communications in our everyday life, interpersonal relationships, husband, wives, kids, friends, heck, just going to Starbucks and grabbing a coffee, interacting with, the people in the establishment there. How much better would life be, for everybody?
That's for sure. Before we get into the heart of all the questions, I just have 2 easy first questions I always ask my guests. The first one is share where you live. Where do you call home?
Well, that's a very interesting question for me.
It's always a tough one. I always thought it was easy, but it's proven wrong.
So I'm a full-time RVer.
Oh, you are awesome.
So
I'm gonna have only RV summit someday, or my nomad entrepreneurs, because you're probably the 16th person, and one of my compilation books is going to be just you all, because I think you are so fascinating.
Well, it's something that has, I've been doing it for 10 years, but it's something to me that I've kind of realized has really exploded since COVID.
Yes.
But currently, I live in Hilton Head, South Carolina.
Oh, neighbors.
So, and, I didn't know that you were in Roswell. My full-time teaching position is at Georgia State University.
Oh, my goodness, just up the road.
Just down the road, yes. So
yeah.
I'll be there until the end of the semester, and I've just resigned to do this full time. Do the coaching and helping people become better communicators full time. It's teaching to me is, I guess, is my calling, and I think I've got a better chance of helping more people doing it this way than the way I've done it in the past.
Well, you and I will have to definitely have lunch or dinner. That sounds awesome before you go to one of my favorite places in the world, Hilton Head.
Yeah, well, it's funny. My wife is a retired educator as well, and when COVID hit, we've got a pad down here, and she said I would much rather be in Hilton Head than in Atlanta, and I said okay, that's fine. So we came here, and then when it came back time to go back into the classroom, she said, well, this is where I'm going to be, so if you want to stay married, this is where we're going to be. so I commute back and forth.
Yeah, my maid of honor and best friend's name is actually Vicki, and my husband's name is Bob, and she married Bob.
Oh my goodness!
So they're from Charleston, is where they have a home now, but they just bought about 2 months ago a pad at Hilton Head because they've been doing RV as just a side thing for several years now. And so they decided they would put they got a larger one on this Hilton Head pad. So I'm hoping to see her a little bit more often, but yeah, you could be neighbors. I don't know.
We could be, I'll do some searching.
Yeah. But it's fun going out on dates with each other, Vicki Bob.
Yeah, you don't have to remember anybody's name.
No. No, it makes it great.
It does.
So I always like for my guests to talk about their journey. And people see maybe the success you have today or who you are today, and they forget about who you were and how that journey took a lot of turns and different paths to get to be the person you are today. So if you could share just a little bit of the highlights of your journey that's brought you to where you are today.
Yeah. And again, that's a really good question, because number one, and we'll get into this later, but I don't think enough, young people actually think about that, as we're getting older. So when I was younger, I was an athlete. I was number one, I was a knucklehead when I was in school, middle school, high school, and I didn't take education very seriously, but I was an athlete. And so, always in the spotlight, interacting with people. From there, I graduated high school, went into the military. And again, you've got to be able to communicate and interact with people there
you do.
all the time. Leadership positions, just the way that you communicate. So when I got out of the military, I enrolled in college, and everybody's got to take this human communication, speech communications, whatever they call it. Doesn't really matter what institution you go to. That's a kind of a standard required course. And I looked at the syllabus and I said, I'm not taking that class. And I'm one of the best ever at getting out of things that I don't want to do. If I don't want to do it, I will find a way to get out of it. So I go through my undergraduate career, and the last semester, my advisor says, Tim, if you don't take this class, you're just not going to graduate. Oh. And that's when I realized I couldn't get out of it. So I took the class, and again, this is when, way before PowerPoint, before we really had computers. I mean, we had them, but not like we see them today, right? And so I get up in front of the class. There's a desk there with a wooden lectern, and I've got my notes on the lectern, and I get ready to start talking, and I threw up right in front of class. Yeah,
I've been there. I've not done that, but I have seen others that I've coached do that. Yeah.
And so, I go from that to now what I do is I stand up in front of people and talk. And I coach people to be able to talk to other people and communicate with other people. And as my teaching career has evolved, what I've noticed is, there are so many people who are so scared to get up and express themselves, express their thoughts. And when I first started teaching, when you have all the filler words, the uhs, the ums, the likes, all those other things, what I would tell the students is, number one, that's a function of preparation and confidence. So be more prepared, be more confident. And that's all I would tell them. And as I've learned, I said that wasn't really helping them. It was just causing more anxiety.
Yes.
because there was no direction in how to overcome those types of things. So that's kind of how I've gotten to where I am today, finding ways that are going to help young professionals be more confident, giving them a structure to be able to communicate effectively in a number of different settings. And, I harp on the whole idea that it's not just giving a presentation or being on stage. It could be in a team meeting. It could be in a one-on-one meeting, an interview, networking event, and any of those times where you have to have interpersonal communication. These strategies work.
Yeah. Everything that we do in life, we have to communicate one way or another. And people forget about that. But, you have to negotiate with the people in the food store or in the parking lot, everywhere. And it's so interesting how, especially as the younger folks are so used to texting and forgetting about tone and how that can change the meaning of what we say. The words are coming out but people can interpret them far different than you meant. And early on, I learned that somehow, some way, how you say things is sometimes more important than the words that you use to say. And so it's vital that those of you out there that are listening understand how important communication is. One of the titles that I could have used for this conversation we're having today, being good at communicating, that takes work and practice. But another one he has is it keeping you from getting the job that you want or the career that you want? And it's so true. You may be frustrated. How often have you gone to a review and said, well, you did great here and all these technical skills, but I really can't promote you because of your interpersonal skills, or you can't communicate on those different levels. I used to get that. What different levels? Oh, you mean this way and that way and that? Oh,
exactly.
Now I get it. I understand, because it is different. So talk about the advice you give to these young professionals of how they can improve that public speaking skills. And remember, public speaking is maybe just one-on-one with your coworker or your manager or your wife or husband.
Yeah, I think the very first thing that they have to understand is it's not about them. It's about your audience. It's about who you're speaking to, or who you're communicating with. And again, this doesn't just go for verbal; it also goes for written. It's about them. It's about the audience, and what is it that they want to know or want to hear. How do they want to be talked to? What are the words that they understand? What's the lingo or the language or the tone? What's the way that they're going to be the most receptive to actually hearing what you say? So the very first thing is you have to understand it's not about you, it's about them.
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought about the written versus the oral, because I know whenever I coach, a lot of times I spend more time on the oral, because what happens is that when you go to write, all the things that you've done and learned about speaking in person comes to mind. Like if I write something, I'm going to think, okay, let me read that to see how it sounds. And then when you hear it, then, oh, well, let me just change things. And I think sometimes we quickly try to get a text out or a email out, and we don't read what we wrote. And then after it gets sent, the person might call, what the heck were you sending me? It's, oh, that isn't what I meant.
Exactly. Yeah. I do that all the time, especially with text messages. I find somebody sends something and I go through it in my head real quick, and I type something, I fire it back, and then I look at it and say, oh, now I'm going to spend another 5 minutes apologizing. That's not really what I meant. That's not what I meant to say. This is this is what I meant to say. And you clean things up if you just take a step back, think about it, and then fire off what it is that you want to send them. It's so important.
And the other side of that too is, I have a rule that if I get 2 emails or 3 emails or texts where we're going back and forth, I pick up the phone and call them, or I set up a Zoom. One of the best inventions was this technology.
Yes.
I did, as a project manager for over 25 years, I had global teams. And so I would have these audio calls with my teams in Asia and all over. And you could hear them saying, yeah, 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 yeah. But then a week or 2 later, whenever we were reviewing things, you saw that there was a miscommunication. There was a lack of understanding.
Mm-hmm.
But so this allows me to see your face. So
exactly.
So you might be saying yes, 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 but your head's like,
I have no idea. I have no idea.
What did she say?
and that's another really good point. They say yes, 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 even though they don't truly understand,
Yes.
and they don't ask the question. Vicki, hold on a second, back up. Can you give me some more detail here? Can you explain this point over there? To me, it's not connecting. Can you give me more insight? Whatever it is, they just say yes, even though they don't understand. That to me that's one of my biggest frustrations especially with young professionals. They know they don't understand, but don't ask that question.
And I think I'm a parent. I'm married to an ex-teacher. And I really think that this, last 25 years or whatever, we kind of taught our kids to just, don't ask me a bunch of questions. Just get the answer right. I asked you a question. I want to quickly give me something back.
Yes.
And we don't ask for clarity. Now as a coach, I'm saying, well, why? What's next? What else? What else? What else? And they get frustrated because they think they're stupid. But no, I'm just trying to teach you to give me more. My one boss used to say, come to me with the hind story. I need the who, the what, the when, the where, the why. And even whenever I work with the students, now I coach 9 to 17-year-olds in public speaking. And for them to give their little presentation, they just give the facts. These are the bullet points.
Yes.
Well, I need more than the bullet points. I need to know why you have that bullet point. And so I think that's really what's happening is the people now are afraid that they'll fail if they don't answer quickly.
Yes.
They don't give the right thing, or if we ask for more, then they must be wrong, and that's going to make them look bad. It's like, no, we're just trying to pull out of you what we know you know.
Exactly. That's it's just so true. It's like you said, it's what we have as of society has done, and it's not doing them any favors at all. It's frustrating, and we've got to find a way to get over that so that it just becomes natural.
Yeah.
To be able to take information and share that information so that other people want to hear it. It's not easy. It's not something that a lot of times for most people it's not natural either.
Yeah.
And so we've got to teach them how to get from where they are to where they really need to be successful.
One of the things, my oldest daughter has 2 kids, 5 and 8. So I was over at our house recently, and the 5-year-old, he's a little precocious love guy, but anyway,
Yeah, I understand.
He did something wrong, and my 66-year-old brain is thinking, well, you shouldn't have done that. Just get out of my She's like, okay, so explain to me, what were you thinking when you did that? And it's okay. I just want to understand what made you want to do that.
Mhm.
And so he's like explaining to her why he did. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, I don't know that I would have had the patience to do that, but it was a good lesson for him because he failed, he screwed up, but it wasn't embarrassing for him to explain to her what his 5-year-old mind thought that would be a good thing to do,
Exactly. But
Mhm.
that's if they learn it when they're 5,
Yes.
they're going to be so much further ahead of their peers, uh, down the road, that it's okay.
Mhm.
Like I said, number one, it's okay to mess up, but being able to explain your thought process and maybe change that thought process, when the same situation comes up, do something a little bit different, but know why you're doing something different as well.
Yeah. And, again, it just goes back to this communication thing does
Mhm.
take practice. It does take work. You have a formula for public speaking that's different than other public speaking courses. So I'd love for you to share what that course is like.
Okay, so my thinking on this is, if you look at all the greats from, a sport perspective, and that's where I come from, and uh, all of the greatest athletes of all time, they never ever stop working on the fundamentals.
Yeah.
They always spend time before each practice, after each practice, to work on the basics. Because if you can't master the basics, there's no way that you can be really good
Mhm.
at all of the other things. And that's kind of how I developed this system, that we focus on the basics of public speaking. First, you have
Mhm.
to know who your audience is.
Yeah.
Spend some time doing your research on that audience, because if that's the very first thing that you have to do. You can't even start collating your content if you don't know who you're going to be giving this content to, and
Mhm.
what content that they want. So then content becomes next. You start pulling all of your content, get all of it, and then you start whittling it down based on who your audience is. And then you have to look at the expectations of the organization that hired you,
Mhm.
the audience's expectations, your expectations. What do you want them to get? What does your audience want to get out of it? Um, and then now you're even whittling your content down even a little bit more. And then you get to the S, which is script. And this is where we start talking about putting that content together in a story form,
Yeah.
start to finish. And we talk briefly about, the visuals. We talk briefly about, facial expressions, nonverbal communication,
Mhm.
terminology that we use. Because again, if we're just focusing on the basics and trying to get rid of that anxiety that they have, and
Yeah.
understand that this is about preparation, and we do spend a lot of time with practice in the S section, but uh,
Mhm.
the whole idea of reducing that anxiety, and we do that through the process and practice.
Mhm.
If you've prepared, just like in a sport perspective, nobody goes into a game, no team goes into a game without having gone through
Yeah.
practice. you know
Drill, drill, drill.
drill,
Mhm.
and that's what this does. And then after they get through and start being proficient in this, then we can go and start working on some more advanced methods, really focusing on tone, really focusing on the language, the body, body language, movement, facial
Mhm.
expressions, emphasis on words,
Yeah.
all,
Pauses.
pauses, all
Mm.
those things that you can't really do if you're so worked up and so tense, right, that you're barely even getting any words out,
Yeah.
to begin with, that are really making any sense.
Yeah. It's interesting as you were talking about that because it's really uh, the more that it's not memorization. I think that's one of the things I always have to share with people is it's it's being comfortable with your content and talking about what you know um in a way that's conversational, right?
Right.
There are some I did a talk at a conference where it was mostly medical professional researchers, and some of the speakers were actually researchers that were presenting their research. And the one person got up and she used all of these huge, big terms. I needed a Webster, a thesaurus, or something to understand. And that's a hard thing for some people to do, is they think, well, if I use simple, we say fifth grade level or less, but fifth grade, that people won't think I'm educated or an authority. And it's like, no, you want, as you said, you want your audience to grasp and understand what you're saying. It doesn't make any difference if you use that big word. If they don't
If they
understand
don't understand it, right?
they're not gonna follow you. They're gonna fall asleep. They're gonna lose interest. They'll disengage.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to keep them with those stories that you talked about. So important. Talk to me about the being allowing yourself to be vulnerable as a communicator. I think that's especially for young professionals or executives, to
Absolutely.
allow your stories to have vulnerability. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. And again, I think that's something that as a society, we said, oh, don't do that. Don't let people don't show your weaknesses. Don't show any of that stuff. And this is something that I've learned and have really kind of embraced over the last few years. Just as for example, since COVID, I told my students I feel like I'm old, because these students that I'm teaching now, I've been teaching longer than they've been alive.
Yeah.
And so I always thought, I could relate to them, on some levels. And then I finally realized, what, there's such an age gap now that it's very difficult to relate to them. And so, it's something that I've kind of embraced, and it really gets into, building connections. And because especially in terms of public speaking and the fear of public speaking, most people have it. And if you share that, then they're going to make that connection. Oh, wow, I'm not the only one. Oh,
Yeah.
This person that's helping me or teaching me or standing up in front of me is having the same thoughts and feelings that I've had. And it's so important to build that connection, to get that buy-in, to get them to get your audience to lean into and really kind of accept what you're saying. It's about, number one, being authentic and relating to your audience, so that you can have that big connection.
So what do you think is probably that biggest challenge that people face when it comes to public speaking?
Well, you've got the whole idea of imposter syndrome, that you're not good enough, that everybody's judging you. You're so afraid to mess up or fail or sound stupid. And the reality is, the audience doesn't care. The audience isn't judging you. That that they're really kind of they're with you. They want you to succeed. They want you to be able to share the information. And for the most part, they're so worried about themselves and their own imposter syndrome and their own anxieties. They're not judging you. So we put, as I tell people, we do this to ourselves. We a lot of times make ourselves have such high anxiety because of our own internal thoughts. And number one, if you're on a stage, you're on the stage for a reason, because you've earned being on the stage. If you're in a team meeting and leading the team meeting, you're there for a reason, because the organization hired you and put you in charge of this team, not because you're stupid, because you can do it.
Yeah.
If your boss asks you a question, that means that he knows that you're either working on it or you've got some input. You're there for a reason, so embrace it. And I get it. Nobody wants to sound stupid, but you're not stupid. It's not. It's even if you don't have an answer, that doesn't mean that you're stupid. Just say, what, I don't have an answer to that. I'll get back to you, whatever it is, and let that anxiety go. It's not. It's something that we've told ourselves. It doesn't make it real. That to me is one of the biggest things that we've got to get over.
Well, and a lot of times, if somebody came to hear you speak, they think you have something that they want to hear.
Right.
And if I always used to say, because I was very much into professional and personal development all my life. I didn't think I was going to be able to go to college, so I needed to make sure I got it somewhere somehow. So that audience is wanting one nugget. I want to leave after this hour or 3 hours or whatever it is with at least one thing that will help me get better at my life and solve some problem that I have. And so if that's what your expertise is, just talk about it. You just want to give them one nugget that they'll take away with it. If you do that,
Right.
then they'll come back for more.
Exactly.
So you and I love podcasting. What role has it played in building confidence and communication skills?
Oh man, if you only knew.
I think I
So,
do.
so it's again, it's kind of a funny story. You know, right after COVID hit, you know, I was working so hard. You know, I had a couple of personal things, family health issues going on in my life. So there was no fun in my life at all, none. And one of the things that my wife and I do is we run amateur golf tournaments, and
oh, cool.
We're friends with the owner. And I went to him and I said, you know, what if I started a podcast for the tour? At the time, he said, sure, because he didn't really get what a podcast could do. And so I did. So I've been doing that now for 2 years. Cool. And it took off almost immediately. I mean, huge. And before that, again, I stand up in front of people and talk. If you put a microphone in front of my face or a camera in front of my face, I was like a babbling idiot. Some of the things that would come out of my mouth if I was interviewed on TV or on the radio, right? Because they don't know about radio. I mean, it's, you know, those types of things. Some of the things that would come out of my mouth, it was bizarre, you know, not to be able to form full sentences. But and if I go back and I look at those first episodes with, you know, me and my partner, I just shake my head. But the whole idea of doing it over and over again and getting better, and it's just like what we talked about, practice. It's hard work. It's anything that is worth being good at does not come easy. It takes practice, it takes work, and you have to work at it. It's not just you're not gonna wake up one day and be really good.
Yeah. And that comfort level, that confidence just comes, but you have the courage, have the courage to do it the first time, and know that you're going to screw up, know that you're going to fail. But it's like anything, at one point you're going to recognize, oh, I actually am good at this now. Something that I sucked at, I'm actually good at because you did that. It is like that tennis player that hits how many tennis balls, you know, or that quarterback, how many throws do they have to throw till they get a spiral that's just floats so nicely.
Exactly. And we, you know, I talk a lot about the 10,000 hours or 10,000 repetitions. And when we talk about that, it's not just doing something 10,000 times. It's when you do it, getting better at it. So noticing what needs to be fixed or corrected or done the same way, and then getting better over time.
Yeah. Well, time has flown by here.
Oh, wow.
And it's time. I just have one rapid fire for you, and that is, who has influenced your work the most? And how have they shaped your approach to doing things?
I go back to my mom and dad. You know, growing up, it was do your best. I don't care how it turns out. Just do your best. You know, I talked about when I was in high school being a knucklehead and not really, you know, putting forth the effort. My parents would get upset with me and they would say, look, we know you're better than this. You know that you're better than this. You need to start being that. And this was, you know, 40 some years ago. And not accepting, not giving my best. It's okay to fail. What they would tell me, they wouldn't say it's okay to fail. It's okay to not win. It's okay to not reach the goal. But if you don't put forth the effort, and if you don't put forth doing the things that you know that you need to do to get better and to win, you're wasting your time, and you're better than that.
Yeah.
And those are words that I hear over and over and over again throughout my life, and I thank them. I thank them for that, because you talk about your grandson at 5. I remember having my dad and mom having those conversations with me at 5 and 6 years old.
Yeah. One of the things that helped as a project manager for me, especially in the last 10 years, where you just learned the confidence that, okay, we're doing something that's never been done before. And so this is like a test ground. And so you start to accept failure as really an opportunity for better.
Right.
It's really, and that was different, and when I started with projects, you had all your plan and your goals, and you didn't want to divert from the plan. But as you become more knowledgeable and the testing and trying, you see that maybe the plan needs to go a different way.
Right.
So one of the things that it did teach me was I needed to spend more time in the first phase of a project, figuring out what are the gaps, what are the opportunities, because a few times in those discussions, we realized that the ultimate goal that we had was not the best one. And so we pivoted and changed early on. But, it's something that everybody needs to know out there, is that failure is oftentimes just another stepping stone or a different path to ultimately the journey you should be on.
Absolutely. And again, failure is okay and good.
Yeah.
If you've done what you need to do.
Yeah. It's just, do you get back up and keep going?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's with speaking too. You are going to screw up. I mean, I have fallen at church when I was going to lecture, got up and read.
There you go.
I have said things that came out with my mouth all, as you were talking, my mouth was not working right that day. And it was a memorable moment. 10 years later, people will say, I remember when yay, not my best moment, but you remembered me.
Exactly.
There's a plus there. So it's just, what is your mindset? That's a huge part of being a good communicator, right? Is that mindset, because it's easy for you to just feel defeated.
Right.
Yeah. No Eeyores allowed.
No, not at all. Not in this business. And again, I actually said this to group of people yesterday. I say and do stupid things every day, and it's how we react to it, how we get on with it, and if I say do all my stupid things early in the morning before you all see them, that's great. But it's understand you all are going to do the exact same thing, and don't worry about it. Clean it up. The way I use self-deprecating humor and just let it roll. Here we go. That's just me being me again. Let's move on.
So. That's so true. All right, it's time now for me to share my slide that has contact information for Tim. If you are just listening, you know the drill. You should have been taking notes of all this great tips and content he shared with you today. But if not, you can find everything on my YouTube channel, Vicki Noethling. So please subscribe, as well as my findyourleadershipconfidence.com website. The website is timnewmanspeaks.com. That's timnewmanspeaks.com. On LinkedIn, you can find him at Tim Newman. On Facebook, it's Tim Newman Speaking with Confidence. Initial cap that. Tim Newman Speaking with Confidence for Facebook. On Instagram, it's Tim Newman Speaks. Twitter is Tim NATC. And YouTube is at Tim Newman Speaks. His podcast is Speaking with Confidence. So the Speaking with Confidence podcast. I'm going to turn it over to Tim to talk to you about his call to action today, and also share any links or things on his website that might interest you to check it out, and where he spends the most time on social media. It's all yours, Tim.
Thank you. I spend most of my time on social media, on LinkedIn and Facebook. And so you can really find me there. But if you go to the Formula for Public Speaking, there you can register for the Formula for Public Speaking course. There's free downloads. You can even schedule a free 30-minute call where we can go over anything that you want to talk about. Maybe I can help you with a presentation, anything to kind of get to know you and help you.
Awesome. So thank you so much for being awesome guest today, Tim.
Vicki, thank you. And what I'll also do is I'll send you a coupon code for 50% off the course for any of your listeners. You can put it in the show notes or
I sure will do that. Thank you
them.
so much. You heard that? 50% off, y'all. All right. So as always, I remind everyone that life is a journey and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.